So we now have a national emergency. And according to experts, Americans are going to experience the pain in 2024. And according to multiple lawmakers, the United States is at stake. What's happening right now is putting us in a very critical situation. However, nobody knows how to respond. Nobody has an answer. And this is causing complete chaos in the entire United States. Now, I'm going to address what's going on here. I'm even going to address what the response was from another country. This is shocking, but this is now the new reality of where we're at. So, I'm going to break down what's going on. All I ask is one thing. It takes 2 seconds. Go ahead, hit that like button if you enjoy these daily updates. And now, let's begin. So we all know the past few years have been difficult. We've seen a pandemic, we went through massive inflation, we've seen job loss. Now we are struggling with a new crisis. This new crisis has many states extremely worried. Many governors are asking the federal government for assistance. However, the federal government is slow to respond. Here's what's going on. Right now we have a crisis at the border. We know this is nothing new, this is not new information. We've known there's a crisis at the border for the past couple of years. This year in 2023, things have gotten worse. But the concern and the worry from experts is that right now, President Biden seems like he is going to lose the upcoming presidential election. If he loses and a Republican like former President Donald Trump steps in, it's going to create a problem at the border for people that are currently trying to get in. We are going to secure the border even more if a Republican president is elected. If this happens, and this is why some are concerned, what is going to happen over the next year is more people are going to attempt to enter into the United States. Well, this is creating an issue for many Democratic governors and for some mayors. Look at this. It says liberal mayors push Biden for emergency declaration, additional funding to deal with migrant crisis. It says the Biden administration has pointed to a slew of actions it has taken to help cities. Now, I want to be very clear on this, and I'm going to read some of this article which was published just this morning. I want to read some of this because what we are now seeing is some are concerned. Some are really concerned with what is happening. But their concern is turning into a problem, not just for us here in the U.S., but for Mexican officials as well. Look what Mexico had to do today. Let me show you this really quick. It says that Mexican officials clear border camp as U.S. pressure mounts to limit migrant crossings. It says Mexico, desperate to get crossings reopened to its manufactured goods, is starting indicate it will crack down a bit on the growing number of people at the border. So here's the thing. Mexican officials over the past few days, actually over the past 2 days, since I believe Tuesday, they have been going from encampment to encampment, and they have been removing what they say are vacated tents. Here's the problem. According to multiple reports of people on the ground, Mexican officials are bulldozing these encampments. They're taking a bulldozer and throwing away any tent that is vacated. Now, here's the problem. Reports indicate that they are not vacant, that people are pretty much running for their lives because they are being told if they do not leave, that the bulldozer is going to take them out, essentially. Here's the problem. The United States does not have an answer for our border crisis because the Biden administration can't do anything. They don't know what to do because if they attempt to fix the border crisis, that technically looks like it's a Republican priority and Democrats are now going to side with Republicans on this. No, that's something that can't happen, especially 1 year before a presidential election. So the Biden administration pretty much has their hands tied. That if they do something, it's a Republican win. If they don't do something, it's a Republican win because Republicans have been telling the Biden administration, you have to solve this crisis immediately. However, they haven't done it. Here in the U.S., the other issue is Texas continues to arrest thousands and thousands of trespassers that come into the state because they are crossing the border illegally. This is happening. This is nothing new. What we're hearing from other cities like Chicago, New York, and Denver is their mayors are saying that their cities are almost at capacity amid this migrant crisis. Again, nothing new. Well, guess what? The mayor of Chicago also has to say. He says the entire country is now at stake without significant assistance from the Biden administration. It says over 20,000 migrants have arrived in the city since August of 2022. That is more migrants than the city is able to house. But look at this. How are we paying for all this stuff? Well, the National Guard was deployed down to Texas. Well, the National Guard deployment to Texas border, this is paid for by disaster response funds. So guess what? And this is from Oklahoma Watch, but they are saying that their disaster response funds have just taken a hit because in order to send the National Guard down to the Texas border, it constitutes as a national emergency, a disaster. Guess what? One of the things that the Biden administration is attempting to do is put more money into FEMA, into disaster response. Well, so the Biden administration is going to attempt to put more money into FEMA, then FEMA will funnel that money over to the border. And that is considered a win-win, according to multiple reports, because Democrats are not funding the border, they're funding FEMA. And then FEMA will funnel the money over. Interesting. Now, I want to read you a little bit of this article talking about this migrant crisis, because again, this is a crisis. But multiple cities, multiple mayors and governors are asking the Biden administration for additional help. And President Biden says he has given help. And I want to explain where this help is coming from. Let's continue reading this. It says a coalition of liberal mayors renewed calls for the federal government to declare a federal emergency over the ongoing migrant crisis that has reached the cities and left them overwhelmed and out of capacity to shelter further arrivals. It says New York City Mayor Eric Adams, Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson, and Denver Mayor Mike Johnson held a virtual press conference calling for more action from the federal government. Adams, the mayor from New York, says, as temperatures drop in New York City, Chicago, Denver, and other impacted cities, we are calling for the federal declaration of emergency financial support and a national resettlement strategy. So before, we've heard this from many mayors and governors. They were saying that they would be happy to have migrants in their cities, in their states. If you remember when Governor Greg Abbott from Texas was starting to send busloads of people to other cities and other states, first they were eager. They're like, yeah, send them our way. We're more than happy to help. Now, there's too many. There's too many. And what we are now hearing is that the American people are going to pay. The American people are going to experience the pain in 2024 because we do not have the resources. We do not have the funding. We do not have the backing of the federal government. Let's continue reading this. It says, this is from Mayor Johnson, says, our cities have reached a point where we are either close to capacity or nearly out of room without significant intervention from the federal government. This mission will not be sustained. Now, they are calling for significant intervention from the federal government. Some are asking for them to stop allowing cities and states to send busloads of people. In Chicago, it's actually against the city ordinance. You cannot drop off a busload of immigrants in the city. Now what are they doing? They're sending them to a nearby city that doesn't have that ordinance, so then they can just walk to Chicago. But guess what they're telling them? Hey, welcome to Chicago. Then when they get off the bus, they realize, oh, we are not in Chicago. Yeah. Here's what is being said. This is from the Denver mayor. He says, we're looking at about $160 million of potential costs going into next year's budget. That's almost 10% of our entire city budget. That's a massive impact for us. In Denver, they're saying it's going to cost them $160 million next year, in 2024. That's 10% of their city's budget. guess what? There will be budget cuts. In order to house this many people, in order to sustain what we have going on, there will be budget cuts. It will come from the police force, and libraries, and parks, and school districts. It is going to be painful for the American people. Let's keep reading though, because what have they asked the Biden administration for? It says the coalition has previously called for an additional $5 billion in help from the federal government. The White House has requested around $1.4 billion to help for communities across the country in its supplemental funding request. But it is being held up in Congress amid calls for more asylum limits from Republicans. So the Biden administration was told that they need $5 billion to help these cities. Okay, so President Biden heard $5 billion, that's what you need. All right, I'm going to give you $1.4 billion. Yeah, maybe that is enough. Don't know. But he's putting that $1.4 billion in a bill, a supplemental funding request. Here's the problem. In order to see that money go through, Republicans are asking for more asylum limits. Democrats cannot give them more asylum limits, cannot give a limit. If they give a limit, the problem is it would look like a win for Republicans. Remember, we are less than 1 year away from a presidential election. Democrats know if they give in to Republican demands now, it is going to cause them a lot of pain. They will not win the House of Representatives. They won't win the majority back. They will not win more seats in the Senate, and there's a chance they don't win the presidency. So as of right now, again, Democrats' hands are tied. President Biden's hands are tied. But is this going to be the best thing for the country, or is it going to be the best thing for a particular party? That's the concern. And this is where many experts say it is not about the people, it's not about the country, it's about who is going to control the House, the Senate, and the presidency in 2024, or technically 2025. That's the concern. All right? So, the one thing that I can tell you at this time is be prepared for the American people to get shafted. We will get screwed in the end, because what we are being told is that it's going to be all about the presidential election. It's going to be about winning back the House of Representatives, controlling the Senate, and keeping the presidency for Democrats. Where Republicans are saying that, no, we absolutely need more security at the border, but at the same time, if we can get more security and we can screw over the Democratic Party, we're going to do it. Because the last 3 years have been abysmal. So, that's where we're at. People are asking for an emergency declaration from the Biden administration, but if the Biden administration does an emergency declaration because of this crisis at the border, again, it's another win for Republicans. So, don't expect a lot of answers. Don't expect a great solution to this problem. Expect that the fighting will just continue. They will keep kicking the can down the road. More people will come into this country, and we will see our resources dwindle down. So, that's what we know at this time. As always, as I know more, I promise I'll come back on and share all the latest news and updates, but that is what we know as of today. So again, thank you guys for watching. Consider subscribing, and I'll see you guys on the next one.